Guitar Solo Countdown.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jimmy Wolf's Guitar Solo Countdown. Today we've got another horror ranking, and this is Sam's wonderful idea. It was hard because there's a lot of them, but we're going to rank our top 10 favorite Stephen King movies. Yeah, there's a lot. There's seems like there's a new Stephen King film every month coming out. So
for the last 30 years.
For the last 30 years, yeah. Probably almost last 50 years, yeah. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I'm going to just throw it to you, Sam. How about you start? Just give an introduction of Stephen King and...
Yeah. I mean, where do you start with The King? I mean, holy smokes. I'm so stoked that you were excited about this one because I think it was either the last one we did or the one before where we sort of went on a little Pet Cemetery tangent, and it was like, oh man, yeah, like Stephen King stuff. That would be so fun to talk about for a while. I mean, geez. And so I'm really glad that you wanted to do this one because it was quite a journey. Totally different from the other three where, you know, we knew what we had to watch. We were ranking worst to favorite, but this is like totally different. We didn't really put rules on it. We just said, watch Stephen King and rank your favorite ones. So this was fun.
Yeah,
I've always been into Stephen King, like as long as I can remember. It's like every time it turns to like mid-September, I start to get into like a Stephen King mood because it starts to get like creepy Halloween season. And it's like my whole life, I just every time I start to get into Stephen King, I have such a good time with it. So I'm ready. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, I think most people know who Stephen King is. I don't.
Yeah. Do we need a biography?
Yeah, his history. Okay, so what's your 10?
Oh yeah. Okay. So my number 10 is Cujo from 1983.
Nice.
Yeah, I hadn't watched this one in a while, and I was really excited to, because it's such a like. It is such an interesting concept for a horror movie and a horror story. And I was really excited to watch this one again, and it did not disappoint. It is so good. I love every minute of it. Like there's like a few, you can have act 1, act 2, act 3 so clearly of this movie. And all of the first half that just like builds these relatable characters and these characters who are struggling with, you know, problems and relationship issues and, raising this kid who's going through, you know, some traumatic things and then ending it with this dog attack, this rabid dog, and they're stuck in this like desperate situation. It's just like, I don't know. I think this movie from start to finish is really intriguing, and like just the opening scene where we first meet Cujo, and he's so cute, and he's just this like bounding Saint Bernard, and they're just so like, they're such lovable dogs, and you just see this like transition happen with him that is heartbreaking and terrifying at the same time. Yeah, I really love this movie a lot. Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah. I wanted to say that there was like performances. Dee Wallace in this movie is so good. She is so good as the lead character, and you believe every minute of what she's going through, right from even the subplot stuff that doesn't even end up being like the main part of the story, right? Like the affair that she's having, and you can see in her performance how that kind of that issue underscores her entire like psyche throughout, even when they're like trapped in the car, and you almost feel like she can tell that, or she feels that this is like something that maybe she deserved, you know, and you sort of see she's just, it's so good. I love it. And then when she says, "Fuck you, dog." It's great. It's so good. Yeah. 10 out of 10 filmmaking. I really loved this movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another crazy horror film called The Howling too. Have you ever seen?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
That's a creepy film.
That is a great movie. I want to rewatch that one for sure. Yeah. She's really amazing. She's really watchable. And I love that not just her, but all of the characters in this, they're layered, and it's a very Stephen King thing where not everything's black and white. People aren't just all good or all bad. Like, people make mistakes, and their mistakes can have consequences. And it's, it's cool. I just feel like this story is like a really like epitome of Stephen King kind of story.
Yep.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck you, dog.
Great choice. Yep.
Like, actually, I don't think there's a single like profanity in the entire movie until she says, "Fuck you, dog." It's so good. The one thing that I have with this one that probably makes it it would have been higher on my list. Probably, I don't love the ending. Just feels really abrupt. And I don't know. I know that the ending in the book is different. The young boy dies, and I don't know if maybe that's the ending I would have preferred because it just the higher stakes, or maybe, I don't know. It just feels really abrupt. They come out of the house. Everything's safe. We get no explanation, freeze frame, done.
Yeah.
So that was like my one thing with it, but I love this movie. It's great.
That's a challenge I have with Stephen King, because there's so many movies. I don't like to watch the movie after I read the book. And vice versa. I like to keep it separate.
Yeah.
That's hard to do, right? Because there's so many movies. But yeah, especially reading the book and then watching the movie shortly after, it's always a letdown because they're always edit out so much to make it fit in a
totally
frame. So
yeah. I did that last year with The Shining. I'll talk about that later, but I think there's a ghost in my house. The lights just went off.
Right when you said The Shining.
Right. I did that last year with actually Children of the Corn and The Shining. And I've always been I think I'm a weird person. I've always been really capable of separating film from story. Like I was one of the few like Harry Potter fans as a kid who I think left the movies not always being totally disappointed because I just had I don't know. I'm really good about being able to separate what I'm reading and what the story in the book is going to be versus what the movie is going to be, and kind of, I guess, viewing them as two separate things. So I actually like it because when I'm reading The Shining and then I'm watching The Shining, they're different and they're we'll get there. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I don't mind doing that, but I know a lot of people have a hard time like kind of reading the book and then watching the movie and being like, but the book is so much better, which is usually the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some exceptions, especially in Stephen King's case. I think there are some exceptions. But yeah, I don't know. Cujo. Yeah. I love this movie so much. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Number 10.
Awesome.
Yeah. What's your number 10?
Okay. Number 10. It's a little goofy. I think the main reason why it's on my list is nostalgia. I'm going to go Creepshow 2.
Whoa.
Part 2. Yeah. It was basically a toss up between Creepshow and Creepshow 2. I chose Creepshow 2 because I love parts of Creepshow 1, but there's parts that I don't like about it. Whereas Creepshow 2, I like the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is goofy, but so this is Stephen King doing short stories and short movies.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost like episodes, like TV episodes. And there's Old Chief Woodenhead, The Wrath, and The Hitchhiker.
The Hitchhiker's great.
It's awesome. Yeah.
The Hitchhiker is great. Yeah.
It's good. Thanks, right, lady. He just mangled up until he's just like a pulp of a monster face.
Oh, it's so disgusting. I love Creepshow too. I'm with you. It's great. Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
And I guess one other thing, I love the cartoon segues in the middle, where they have the Creepshow, like the creepy skeleton guy.
Yeah. I love that from Creepshow and Creepshow 2, the EC Comics kind of vibe, and I think it's cool. Like it works for these movies so well, you know. And I think anthology horror movies generally struggle, you know, because I don't know, maybe it's just by nature. Anthologies work really well as short stories, but not always on film. I don't know why. But the Creepshow stuff works out really well. I really like it too. I'm with you.
It does. Yeah. And another really cool movie, not on this list. Well, it's not Stephen King, I don't think, but Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah.
Is a really good movie too.
Yeah. It's fun. And it's kind of like the Tales of the Crypt sort of vibe too. I think they're sort of different. I mean, they are different, but I like that vibe. It's like it's like fun horror, and you know that you're going into fun horror, so you can put your brain on for that and not be let down.
Totally.
Yeah. Plus, there's in Creepshow 2. I know in Creepshow 1, there's a lot of like there's some pretty famous actors who are in it. Creepshow 2, there are also, right? We get some.
There's well, in The Hitchhiker, the woman in the car, that was a Bond girl. She was in Moonraker. Yeah, and her name was Holly Goodhead. Yeah. I
don't get it.
Just Bond girl names, you know. Maybe a double entendre kind of.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Oh, I get it now. Okay, great. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Creepshow 2. That's a good pick. I support that.
Yeah, Louise Stiles. I think that's her name.
Yeah.
Stiles. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
One last thing. Rick Wakeman from the band Yes did a lot of the music in the segues.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very cool. I'm a huge Yes fan, so that was
a little bit of music trivia for you.
Yeah, that was a treat. I
think the music in Creepshow 2 is pretty fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. It suits that vibe of like the horror fun.
It's got that funky piano, like
It's great. I love it.
It's awesome. Yeah.
That's fantastic. My number 9 is Children of the Corn, 1984's Children of the Corn. This movie, I recognize a lot of people have problems with this movie. I think, and I recognize that there are aspects of it that are not the best, but I just think that the story of Children of the Corn is so creepy that for me, it gets a watch every year at Halloween. I remember renting it when I was like in the 5th grade or 6th grade with my horror movie friend, and the cover of it was the VHS was so creepy. I think there was Isaac was on the front of it, and it was just it is so creepy. It gives me like Halloween vibes whenever I watch it, so that always makes me happy. But I love this, like it's kind of like a road trip horror story, which I'm also into. I love like Jeepers Creepers and Wolf Creek and like The Hills Have Eyes and stuff, where you've got either this couple or this family and they're traveling in a car and stuff starts to go wrong. And boy, does it. I mean, can you imagine? You stumble, you're in the middle of nowhere, which already like is creepy enough. If you don't know where you are and you're in the middle of cornfields everywhere, and I've always been a little bit afraid of cornfields. I just think they're very creepy places to begin with. It's just such a great movie. I love Linda Hamilton in it. I think the two lead, the couple are really watchable and really relatable. They're kind of like an every man, every woman, you know, like you can really put yourself in their shoes. That Isaac kid, he's that great. Like preacher. Oh, he's just so creepy. He is so creepy. Yeah. And I guess I hate to say this because it's sort of rude, but the children are my biggest issue in this. They all are not great child actors. they're not great. And so I think that a lot of the times when I'm watching, I'm like, I don't find the kids all that scary, except for Isaac, and maybe sometimes that Malachi kid, the redhead who does all the killings. But I just don't. I don't find them to be overly scary. I think I wish that they. I don't know if it was worked with them a little more, or I don't know, but. There's some true horror in this. The cop skeleton, blue man guy. Even the idea of he who walks behind the rose is terrifying. Yeah, the story is way scarier. I mentioned it. Well, you know that. The story is way scarier. I like the ending more in the story than I do in the film. In the film, it's kind of like, again, kind of a letdown, the ending. But overall, love this movie. It's great. It's such a romp. Yeah. Bad effects though. Not great effects.
Yep.
Yeah, there's this like one scene where Isaac gets like, I don't know, like light seems to like absorb him and he like, I don't know. It's just the weirdest. Didn't look good, but great movie.
Great segue, Sam. My number 9, Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
We lined up.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I always loved Malachi. I love that.
Do you know he was 26 years old, that actor?
Okay, yeah. So he's got what's that thing where you look young?
I don't know.
I don't know if he has that or not, but
I'm not sure. But he looks. It's weird because I actually find this is also maybe rude, but you know how there's some kids that you look at and you're like, they have an adult face already, but they're still kids, and it's just sort of off-putting.
Okay, yeah.
You're like, you look like you have a grown-up face, but you're 8. That's a little bit weird, right? And then he's got the Malachi, this weird like voice. Oh, creepy.
Yeah.
Nightmarish. Yeah, definitely.
He still looks fairly he looks really good now.
Yeah.
God, yeah, he was 26 there.
Yeah, isn't that wild? He was the oldest of, well, obviously the oldest. The rest of them are all actual kids. I don't want to leave out the fact that I also noted that in this, the score is so effective. It's really good.
Score's good, yeah.
It's like there's this scene where they are cutting back and forth between I can't remember their names, but the lead guy is walking through the town, kind of exploring, and she is in the house with the little girl, and the kids are weaponed up and they're creeping in on the house and getting ready to kidnap her. And the music is just so integral for like bringing that feeling of like suspense and tension. I was like, it's freaky. I love it.
It's Jonathan Alias. Jonathan.
Yeah. I think I wrote. Yeah. Where did I write that down?
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, it was really, and choir. Like anytime if you're gonna use a little bit of a choir in there.
Yeah.
Freaky.
It's interesting too because there's a bit of foreshadowing at the beginning where they're driving through a town called Gatlin, Nebraska.
Yeah, Gatlin, which is also a creepy name.
Yeah, it's like Gatlin gun, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
They're driving through Nebraska, and they're on the radio. There's these pretty hardcore Christian preachers, and they're kind of making fun of it in the car. And it's interesting how maybe it's parallel because I think the kids were involved. It seems like it was more of a pagan sacrifice cult. It's kind of an old school. I don't know. It sounds like but it's kind of runs alongside the religious fundamentalist, which I thought was really interesting because it's a different kind of religion. I mean, obviously not all pagan religions are sacrifice murder cults, but it has that kind of, it has a bit of an anti-Christian thing to it, but at the same time it's still extreme, right?
Yeah.
How they paralleled that foreshadowing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really off-putting concept.
Yeah.
It's very off-putting. I guess when you feel bad because they hit the kid, and it's so awful. It's so like, it's actually a very like, I think a very like visceral kind of thing for this movie. Like they just smoke this kid.
Yeah.
And they discover the gashed throat. Can you imagine? Like you are in the middle of nowhere. That is so scary. And not only did you run over a child, but then to discover that they've had who slashes a kid's throat, right? Like in that situation, oh man, it is very scary. I like this one a lot.
It's good. Yeah. And even, I mean, I live up north, surrounded by cornfields.
Yep.
As well. So I understand that when you first see it, just this sea of corn, it is a little unsettling at first. It's like, it's like an ocean of crops.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of getting used to.
It's freaky and you can get lost in those things. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think there were a few movies or a few like stories that I read when I was a kid that involved cornfields, like scarecrows and freaky things like that. And it just is a very good setting or very good idea for scary because you go in there, but like,
for sure.
Good luck finding your way out. If there's not like a path, right? You're screwed. Yeah. Terrifying.
Okay. Awesome, Sam. How about your number 8?
Okay. My number 8 is The Mist from 2007. I love this movie. And this is one I think too that I don't know if everyone is on board with this movie. And I kind of get it, but I personally think that this movie is like top tier Stephen King. Firstly, the fact that you've got Frank Darabont at the helm. And so he already did Shawshank and Green Mile, and was I guess in the process while he was doing this film, probably of creating The Walking Dead. Right. And so, so I love his stuff. I really do. And I think he's a very effective filmmaker in general, obviously, because Shawshank and Green Mile, but also just a very effective horror filmmaker because especially when he gets to collaborate with Stephen King, they're both really good at understanding that like horror doesn't have to be sleazy to be good, right? Like they're both really good at that. And they both wrote the screenplay. And anytime that there's Stephen King's input on the screenplay, I think it just ups the game so much to have him there. The dialogue is kind of fun because it seems a little bit like B-movie-ish. And so, but the acting is like, it's really good acting. There's a lot of Walking Dead actors, which I loved The Walking Dead when it came out. I was like a huge Walking Dead fan. I couldn't believe how many Walking Dead actors fly by in this movie. It's great. But it's a scary concept. It's freaky. It's apocalyptic. There's religious fanaticism that starts to happen in it. That Mrs. Carmody, Marcia Gay Harden plays there. Oh, so freaky, like giving us kind of like Carrie White's mom, but in our own modern sense. I just a really scary, freaky concept. The gore is pretty good. I love the effects. We get my favorite is there's like this. They find an army guy in the webs, and he just bursts forth spider monsters. It's disgusting. And it's so gross. We got Shermanator, poor Shermanator from American Pie just gets ripped to shreds by the tentacles. Like there's some good stuff in this. I love it. The ending is, I honestly think it might be my favorite ending in any Stephen King horror story. Or, it's so good. And I know a lot of people have their own opinions on it. I think it's so good. It's where the movie, honestly, where else was the story gonna, it had to end like that. It was so gut wrenching and just almost like hard to watch. When the mist starts to clear and he realizes that if it just waited 30 more seconds, then it would have been over. Oh my God, it's heartbreaking. And even Stephen King said to Frank Darabont that like, I should have ended it this way. I should have ended the story this way to begin with. So if he likes it, I'm in. You know, it's very good. Major fan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's yep. This one's a good one too. He also
Yeah.
he wrote the script for Dream Warriors, eh?
He did?
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go. Genius. So good. Yeah, I really like this one. I really do. Happy to watch it.
Okay, so my number 8, this is a newer one, and I really enjoyed it. It got up to number 8 for me. It's called 1922.
Ah.
So it's a very depressing film, and it's basically a farmer whose wife comes across inherited money, and she wants to leave, take the son, and go to the big city. And this farmer is just so old school. He wants to stay on the farm, and so he decides to murder his wife and involve his son in the murder. What I really enjoyed about the film is that you saw the movie through his story,
Mhm.
and at first you're like, man, this guy's, he's absolute evil. He murdered his wife and involved his child. Like, how much more evil can you get?
Mhm.
But the crazy thing is, as the film goes on, you start to like empathize with him and actually care for him, and then it starts to get confusing. Is this guy good or bad? It's very ambiguous, but that's what I think is so genius about this movie is, yeah, you start to care for him, and that is real life, right? Like, people well, in my opinion, people are good and evil all throughout their life, and it's really just a battle of which one you can push forward more. And whereas in a lot of fiction and movies, it's always, well, this is the villain and this is the hero, right? It's very black and white, but this showed the grayness of reality.
Yeah. And he's so good at doing that. King is so good at doing that.
So good at doing that. And I love the acting in this.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm not, I'm not saying that it's okay to kill his wife, but
To murder your wife and throw her down a well.
yeah, but you saw that, as when he did that, his life just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And,
Yes.
And he's at the end, he's writing his confession, so he's trying to redeem something or just some kind of redemption from what he did.
Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting. It actually it sort of got a similar vibe to, I'm thinking of some other characters in Stephen King who are like that, but like the lead character in Thinner, who you're like, this guy is such a he's just not a likable guy. And then as you get into it, you still don't necessarily like him, but you do start to feel like Stephen King is really good at making you feel empathy for, quote unquote, a villain or a person who is maybe not making like morally good decisions. Even like in Cujo, the dog, like you actually feel, you don't just go, oh, it's a scary monster. You feel bad for that. I feel so bad for that poor dog, yeah, he's really good at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I it was just a great experience to watch this. Disturbing, but I felt like I got a lot of depth from it, which is which is unusual from a horror film. And one last thing is, I love how Stephen King has his little taglines. I think in this one, it's probably not his best, but it was in the end, we all get caught. In the end, we all get caught.
Yeah. He was a good performances though.
Yes.
Too. Even the kid was really, like, the young boy was really good.
Yes. Yeah. Was Thomas Jane was the actor, I think.
Yeah. I watched it and I think it was, I really enjoyed it. It was very dark.
Yes. Yeah.
But there were some really unnerving moments, and it was nice because I sometimes don't always think about the newer Stephen King stuff. some of it is so good. I think a lot of it right now is being done through like a television series kind of thing. Like he's getting his hands into that a lot. But 1922, I was like, oh, okay, he's still got it. I'm gonna maybe spend some time watching some of the newer stuff in the next little while. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he does that. Stephen King also does this where he has these extreme third dimensional symbols that represent, the what's going on inside of the characters. In this one, it's rats, right?
That was gross.
There's just an outpouring of rats everywhere. And the rats, probably representing the spiritual and emotional turmoil that's going on in his head. But it's almost kind of so overt. It's like, it's not a subtle symbol. It's like,
no, it's like and not only that, but they're always like scratching away at something like, we're here. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's your guilt.
Yeah. It's, and that's what makes it special, like especially Stephen King is just the overtness of the whole thing.
Totally.
But it makes for good movies.
It certainly does. Yeah.
I haven't read the story, but I would imagine that he would have put a lot of emphasis on the rats in the story too.
Yeah, they're gross. They're even the scene, like the shot of the wife at the bottom of the well is really haunting. It was a well done film. I really liked it too. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Sam, are we on 7?
Yeah. Ooh, okay, we're getting there. So my number 7 is The Dead Zone from 1983.
Killer movie.
I seem to have spent a lot of time in the 80s with this list, but what can you do? This movie is so good. Young David Cronenberg. I don't know if it was like his first movie.
Good question. No, it's probably his 6th, I think.
It was definitely it was definitely early days, I think, but it's such a well done film, and it's so different from when you think of Cronenberg. It's different on the surface, but like underneath, like the stuff that's going on underneath it all is so much up Cronenberg's alley that I think this is a great movie for him to have taken on.
Yeah.
I think he made it so well. It's definitely a very well adapted film. Christopher Walken, it might be his best performance of all time.
Yeah.
He's so good in it. And again, it's this character, Stephen King. He's so good at setting these characters up. We meet this guy and he's living like the happiest part of his life. He's got a new love and he likes his job and everything's, on the up and up, and then taken away in a second.
Yeah. And
the whole concept of like, just when he wakes up and he's psychic powers, and then suddenly we're thrust into this like, okay, well, what do you do when you wake up and you have the ability now to see and control people's fate, like, and the world's fate? Like, what do you do with that power? Yeah. And we see the struggle that he goes through in realizing that his whole life has been taken away. His love is, with another, married and has a child, and it's so heartbreaking. And so his journey in it is just, it's so good, and it's so watchable. The Martin Sheen is probably one of my favorite villains. It's so, especially now, it seems to have taken on almost like a even more relevance. I don't know. It's like the idea of this morally corrupt person who just is seeking absolute power and will do whatever they have to do to get it. And then the idea that person is going to commit like global genocide, and what do you do with that knowledge? Like, it's so good.
And that's the human condition, right? Is absolute power corrupts, and
absolutely
power corrupts absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. And I love the ending I think is carried out really well. It's sad. It's when he dies and he gets killed at the end. And you almost see like, no, like it was all for naught. No, right? But then you get the shot of the magazine and you realize that even though he was killed, like he still did what he had to do. He still showed the world this piece of shit and hopefully saved it. I just really like this movie. I love that it's an example of like Stephen King humanizing like the supernatural, right? He really can take a supernatural element and just make it so human.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. I mean, he not only does he see these visions, but he's like transported into the visions. And that scene where he wakes up in the little girl's bed and the room is on fire and the fish bowl is boiling, like it's so scary.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I just think it's 10 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's my number 7 now.
Yes.
Okay, so this one is my favorite Stephen King story.
Ooh.
And it's Carrie.
Whoa.
Love this one.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite directors, Brian De Palma. This is what broke him in the industry. He did a few others before this. Sisters is great. This came before, but Carrie is what broke him into the mainstream.
Totally.
I think the story is genius. This launched Stephen King's career too, right? And Carrie was his major book too. So for me, this makes sense. This is what made him a household name. This is what gave him his own book rack at Chapters, right?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Did you read Carrie as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I read it when I was like 8, 9 years old. It was, amazing.
It's so good. And when it honestly so well adapted.
Yep.
Like,
he
did such a good job adapting the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
For me, the ending is like probably one of the greatest moments in cinematic history, where she just the blood dumps on her, and then she just destroys the prom, and just the slow motion walking out of the prom, flaming behind her, and then the greatest scene, she gets home, and her mom knows what she did, and then her mom tries to kill her, and then Carrie, mind knifes her.
Mind knifes her.
And she is against. She gets like hung, like crucified, on the cross.
Yeah.
In a cross position. So it's like, and that, I guess that's the whole underlying theme of the story is Carrie, is she satanic? Is she evil? Is she the devil? Or is she just a misguided teen with psychic powers?
Yeah.
And maybe it's both. And at the end, you're like, it could be both. I mean, that was a really nasty kill.
It's a brutal kill, and I love it too. The imagery of it, like, I mean, Sissy Spacek talks about when she was in the process of like developing the character. One thing that she took a lot of like inspiration from was old religious paintings, like those really freaky ones, right, with the wide eyes, which is why like a lot of her physical movements have that kind of like wide bug-eyed, like kind of religious, that imagery, right? And it's the same thing at the end there. It's so freaky, it's so cool, and I mean, I love this story too. It's so good. And for me, like Carrie, the question of like, is she evil? Is she just a problem kid, a troubled child? But one thing that I just love, like, I think this movie does so well is that Carrie, the stuff that she goes through, not just at school, but the abuse that she handles under her mother, like the straight up like abuse, emotional, physical, mental abuse. Mm-hmm. And how does that play into, what she does? Because, you can imagine being, I mean, I don't know, I always I empathize a lot with underdogs. I always empathize with underdogs. in that first half of the movie, for me, it's just heartbreaking to see oh my God, like all of the stuff that she goes through. And then at the end, you're like, well, what would I do my entire life? That's what I'm putting up with. Like, that's torture. That's complete torture. I don't think I'd kill my mother with a mine knife, but
because it's abuse at home and at school.
it's everywhere. It is completely, it's permeates into her entire being. And then there's even that scene with the gym teacher, and she's looking in the mirror and she's like, oh, you're so pretty. Like, why don't you have a little more confidence in yourself? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? And you're looking at, and you can see in Sissy Spacek's face, like, she's like, well, I can't even comprehend that. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's so heartbreaking. And it's so like, I feel for her when I watch this movie.
For sure.
To the point where I'm like almost on her side most of the time, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
good choice.
Sure. It's like, yeah, I mean, and it is a somewhat of a revenge story too, right? Mm-hmm. She kills all the people that were abusing her.
Yeah. But the messed up thing is even at the end, like even the people who weren't too,
that's true.
Like it's, by the time she snaps, it's like, it doesn't matter whether you were good to her or not. It does not matter. It's you're toast, it's freaky. It's really, it's a good movie.
The other movie that Sissy Spacek was in that's pretty obscure. It's called Three Women. Have you ever heard of that movie?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen it. I think it's a play. Why do I think that?
Great movie. Yeah, it's Sissy Spacek and Shelley Duvall. Yeah, they're both in the same movie. It's so good.
Well, I know what I'll watch later. That's great.
It's it came out in 1977, and it's Robert.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I recommend that one.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I think Sissy Spacek is just,
she's awesome.
So good. So good. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
Carrie.
So good.
Yeah.
All right. Number 6.
Okay. So my number 6 is It 2017. So It Chapter 1. Yeah. Okay. So I struggled a little bit. Remember when we talked about how we didn't really make rules for this one, right? And it was like, I don't know, like just watch Stephen King and make a list of your favorites. And I did leave out the mini series of It in favor of the newer version, not because I really like the mini series. I think the main thing is Tim Curry. He's just, as Pennywise, nightmare fuel, complete and total nightmare fuel. So this, in saying, that this is makes my list, and like It, the miniseries doesn't, is not to diminish Tim Curry in any way, because he was terrifying as Pennywise. And that movie even is great. Like that miniseries is really well done. But I am so glad that they revisited this story starting in 2017. I think it's one of Stephen King's absolute best. It is terrifying. It is such a scary book. It's such a scary concept. Like a monster feeding on children and their fears, and it's so creepy, right? I really, really love the story. And I just think that this particular film is so good at what it sets out to do. The right off the bat, the opening scene with Georgie, man, that scene slaps. It's so freaky and it's so scary, and it puts you, even if I'm 34 years old, but it puts me right back to being like 8 or 9 and what it feels like to be afraid of things when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Because fear when you're a kid, because everything is, you're still, you can still, you believe things still. Like fear when you're a kid is just, it's such a distinct feeling. And I think that this movie just does such a good job at bringing that out. I think that Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is terrifying. I think he did an amazing job in this role. Like, it is so free. Yes, the makeup is freaky, the effects are freaky, but he is genuinely unnerving as Pennywise. He is so freaky. The sewer scene is terrifying. There I find it funny. There's that one shot where he's munching on a kid's arm, like a snack, like it's a drumstick. But you're like, oh my God, like he is so freaky. He is makes this movie. He really does. The kids are fantastic. They're so watchable. I care about them. They are really well written and adapted from their book counterparts.
Yeah.
You feel like you're watching kids. You feel like this is how kids behave and how they talk, and like, you know, and it's not trying to sugarcoat anything. It's not, oh, like these cute little innocent kids. And no, like they're 13 years old. They're dealing with things. They're saying fuck a lot. You know? I really love this movie. There's so many good scary moments. The painting lady in the synagogue who eats that one kid's face. It's disgusting. They get like a leper zombie at one point that just grosses me out to no end. It's just, it's such a good movie. I really enjoyed watching this. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
10 out of 10. Everything is apparently.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like this list doesn't have any bad movies on it.
No, that's why it's fun. I like all of these.
It's like great to greatest as opposed to worst to first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this parallels a little bit to my number 6. So my choice is a coming of age story about 4 children finding a dead body.
Freaky.
Stand By Me.
Yeah. Great movie.
Great movie. Yep. It's not really a horror film, but it's got a lot of the Stephen King drama elements to it.
But even, I mean, them finding the body is freaky.
It's freaky. Yeah. Great, fantastic score. Has all those old 50s classics. You know, it's great that they found Stand By Me and paired that up with the film. I'm sure that's probably why they changed the name of the film, and it's because it was originally called The Body.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's such a good movie.
Yeah, and it had had like River Phoenix and Corey Feldman,
Jerry O'Connell.
I mean, just
and I feel like it's a movie that, like, especially a certain generation can really look at and be like, wow, this is like watching, my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so much for me, but I get that. I think it's a great movie. I'm with you. Yeah.
It's great. Still have to say, I think it's
it's just, it's great. Give this man the $2 million. Yeah, but it's such a great movie. And that's like, I don't remember if we mentioned this, but like the fact that, again, no rules. You went in the drama direction. I don't have any of his dramas on here, and it's not because I don't like them. I love Stand By Me. I think it's a great movie. I love The Green Mile. I love Shawshank Redemption. All of those. This was a very difficult list to make.
For sure.
This was hard.
Because you have to have rules to exclude certain movies. I mean, how are you going to pick like between, is there like 100 Stephen King movies? Well,
yeah, right. And it's cool that we kind of picked our own personal rules to follow. I actually really like that because it means that like it's a surprise in all aspects, right? It's kind of neat. But no, Stand By Me is an absolute classic. And yeah, it probably would have been on my list if I had done some dramas as well.
Yeah.
Alas.
That's what I'm trying to look at. I'm trying to look up to see how many Stephen King movies there were or there are.
I had no concept. When I suggested this, I was like, oh, I think there's a lot of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them. But then I went to he has a website with like all of it, like just on a list. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. Just totally insane.
So much more than I even could have assumed, predicted. It's amazing.
Yep.
That guy writes apparently there's only 2 days a year that he doesn't write. I don't know which 2 days those are, but
Okay.
he writes constantly. That's insane.
He's prolific. Yep.
Mhm.
All right, Sam, number 5.
Number 5. Let me scroll to my notes here. Number 5 is The Shining.
Oh.
1980. Again, 80s. Yeah, okay. This one, I love this story, both in book form and in movie form. And this is the perfect thing. This is like exactly what I was talking about when I was saying, like, I'm happy in a way that I can totally separate the two, because the book and the movie could not be more different from each other. Like to the point where Stephen King famously does not really like the adaptation that Stanley Kubrick did. And I totally understand why. It's totally changed the tone of it. Like you get in the book, it is very supernatural horror. It's very clear. There's ghosts. It's all supernatural, spooky, that kind of thing. It's a real story of seeing this character, this Jack Torrance character, go from being, obviously someone who has struggles, but from kind of someone who generally is pretty even keeled, and then completely goes insane, and all of the things happen. Whereas in the movie, I love Jack Nicholson. I don't love his take on this character, just because the way he starts it, he's already crazy from the top. And I don't personally like that choice, because I just feel like he has nowhere to go. Now, having said that, when he gets into the really crazy stuff, it's scary. Like he's got it. I just more of a journey like the one that happens in the book would have been good for me. But having said that, this film is beautiful. And what Stanley Kubrick, his adaptation of it, which takes it from like a supernatural horror to more of like a psychological horror, it's completely different, but it works for me. I can, if I'm separating the two, I'll sit down and enjoy The Shining. At least once a year at Halloween. It's such a good horror movie, from the cinematography, the score, the acting, just everything, the detail, in the movie. It's so, so, so good. It's a piece of art. Honestly, it really, really is. Some of the most iconic horror imagery ever. The blood coming out of the elevator, the two twins, the whole scene in the room 237 or whatever. It's just, there is so much iconic horror in this. I love this movie. It's so great. Now, there's a lot of like drama, especially in the last few years, I think, about this, because really Stanley Kubrick turns out probably a bit abusive. Probably more than a bit abusive, especially to Shelley Duvall. I mean, she obviously went through a lot in this movie and that shouldn't have happened. The abuse that she suffered, it really, really shouldn't have happened. And I don't like to think about it, because it's it makes it a little bit like hard to enjoy, knowing that, he pushed her to limits that nobody should have been pushed to, especially at work, but the movie it's so good. I really, really, really enjoy it. It's scary. It's artful to watch. It's a great film. Yeah, I really like it. I didn't know that. I knew Stephen King hated it. I knew that he famously does not like this adaptation. I didn't know that he didn't like it so much that he made his own. I did not know that.
There's another Shining?
Yes, there is a 3-part TV miniseries of The Shining that Stephen King wrote himself, that he adapted, because he hated the movie so much. I had no idea, but I kind of want to watch it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's probably because it was such a big movie.
Yeah.
I imagine there's probably a bunch of movies that Stephen King doesn't like, but I think the Shining was the fact that it was Stanley Kubrick. I mean, he's Hollywood royalty, right? So
yeah.
I think that's probably where the
Yeah, I mean I tried to look up to see like what movies he likes, which ones he really likes and which ones he doesn't really like. And yeah, The Shining was always like top of the list. It's like, yeah, and he says he recognizes that it's good to look at, but I think he described it as like a Cadillac without an engine.
Wow.
Which is like, ooh, yikes. Okay. But, I mean, I guess it depends on your taste in horror. It depends on your taste in filmmaking. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think the coolest shot is when you follow Danny on the tricycle through the hallways.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's so cool. Yeah. Good movie.
Cool.
I'm just writing down. I wrote down this quote. I had a dream I chopped you into little pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm just saying that if that was ever uttered to me by my partner, I would be like, it's time to leave. That's a red flag. Like, even if he's going through some kind of, no, just leave. If he says, I'm going to chop you into little, or I dreamed that I chopped you into little pieces, we need to separate for a bit until you sort that one out.
Yeah.
That's scary.
All right. So my number 5, Pet Cemetery.
Yes.
Part of me wanted to put it higher just because it's such an enjoyable film and it scares the shit out of me every time.
Yes, terrifying.
I haven't now. This is one of the few Stephen King movies that where I haven't read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I saw the movie fairly early on in my life, I didn't want to wreck it.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to do that. I like to keep the book and the movie separate. I imagine the book is amazing. My dad told me that it scared him when he first read it. But yeah, I think this has got a great tagline. Sometimes dead is better.
So good. And a weird one because you're like, what does that mean? And then you see it and you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
And you start to see a lot of similarities in Stephen King stories. There is a lot of referencing to indigenous people, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
probably indigenous abuse,
Mm-hmm.
which would mean that there's a burial ground that you don't want to touch, and it's
Mm-hmm.
if you do, it's haunted. That might be a symbol for past atrocities that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that in his stories. You can even say like the Shining. It's in The Shining. It's in a lot of his stories.
Yep.
And also and we talked about on the Halloween series, Rob Zombie's sort of hillbilly horror genre. But I mean, Stephen King, you could say, invented the whole hillbilly horror thing. I mean, most of his stories are in rural America.
Yep.
Like middle to lower class rural America. I wouldn't say they're all hillbillies, but it's this is in the too. It's in a lot of his stories. Yeah. So I mean, this one is just a classic. It's just classic King. It's got everything.
Yeah.
It's got the taglines. It's got the indigenous references. It's got a bit of the hillbilly thing going on, or the.
Yeah, it's got the like struggle of like morality versus like, doing what you want to do, like bringing your dead child back to life.
And it's also got that. It's got children who terrorize too.
Oh my God.
That's another one of King's. Because I mean, there is nothing more terrifying than seeing an innocent child become evil. That's very.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent, but I could imagine that probably would be the scariest thing for a parent to see.
Yeah, definitely. This movie is very scary. The story is really scary. Yeah, like it's. I'll talk more about it. I love this movie. But I remember it being, I think probably, definitely Carrie was the first one that I watched, but this was up there. It might've been like the second Stephen King movie that I ever saw. And it freaked my bean right out. Like it's scary. There are some moments in it that are truly like, even to this day, when I watch it, I react emotionally. Like it's so freaky. Yeah. Good story.
Great score.
Yeah. Another one. Yes.
I think is it Elliot Goldenthal?
I didn't write this one down, but I did write that again. I wrote children choir.
Yes. I will say that it was ripped off from another horror film. It was done very well. I'm not shitting on the score, but it was taken from another amazing horror film called Amityville Horror.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Very similar theme.
I do like that one.
Yeah. So
yeah.
check it out.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I'm upset now. I thought it was original.
I mean, it's fine.
No, it's
I don't mind that kind of stuff. I think that's that saying. It's like artists borrow, but great artists steal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, sometimes, right? Make. Yeah. No, it's a movie that sticks with you. I think that a lot of people, when they talk about this movie, like even I was mentioning it to my mom, and she was like, "Oh my god, that movie like terrified me so much." I'm like, "Yeah, it sticks with you." One thing that I thought was cool. I mean, I love that it's directed by a female. I have to say, like, girl power. Mary Lambert is the director of this movie. Apparently, Romero was signed on to originally do it, and timing didn't work out. So Mary Lambert was hired, and she did music videos primarily, a lot of music videos, which is how she knows the Ramones. She literally called up the Ramones and was like, "Hey, you want to write us a song?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And then they did.
Sense, okay.
And then you got "I Don't Want to Be Buried." It's so good. Yeah, it's such a good movie. So much to say. Oh.
Okay, well, you got to wait your turn. So.
I know.
All right, so we're on 4 now. So what's your 4?
4. Okay, this was kind of a tough one. My number 4 is Creepshow, 1982. I wasn't sure whether to put on Creepshow 1 or Creepshow 2. I really love them both, but I love Creepshow. I just have such a fun time watching this. Every single story. I mean, yeah, they're not all great. The one that Stephen King is in, arguably, is just really, really bad. But even that one, like it, when I was a kid and I saw that like moss growing out of his skin, it really traumatized me. Like I even to this day have a very like I have a weird fear of like skin growths and like stuff like that, like or things that shouldn't be on your skin growing out of your skin. Like it's so nasty. But no, I think story after story here. The first one, Father's Day, is
Where's my cake?
Where's my cake? It's so ridiculous. But the thing is, it's like it's so crazy.
Yeah.
But the acting in it, like they are committed. The actors in this are great. Like they're so committed to it. The special effects are amazing in this. Every single thing is so good. What other? Oh, the Something to Tide You Over scene. That's with Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen. And that one I didn't really like that one that much when I was a kid. I would always kind of like skip over that one. Seemed a little bit more like grown up. I don't know. I love it now. I think it's so freaky. And Leslie Nielsen is just
plays a great villain.
Oh, he plays such a good villain. He's so charismatic, and you're just, oh man. And what a terrible fate.
Yeah.
Like it's really, it's a really good one. You got the crate monster, with the weird
awesome
gorilla looking guy. He feeds his wife.
It's like, oh, what a great opportunity.
Oh, this is perfect. I'm going to feed my wife to her. Yeah, it's just such a good one. I love watching Creepshow and Creepshow 2 at like Halloween time. It's perfect. Anyone who's into like horror being just as ridiculous and ostentatious as possible will just love this movie. And yeah, I couldn't get enough. I was in it the entire time. I was so happy to be watching it. It was great. Yeah.
I think my favorite part is the first one when he finally comes out of the kitchen. He's got the cake with like the head on it. I finally got my cake. Like that's all he wanted was his cake, right?
Guys, why did you just give him damn cake? Just that you could have saved yourself so much trouble. Just give him the cake. But him coming out of the he's creepy. That corpse. It's Tom Savini, who did the effects. Which I mean, again, there are just certain people that you're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm totally in. You got George A. Romero and Tom Savini on this one, plus Stephen King. Hello. I think it's pretty funny that, not to go back to that Geordie one, but you can really tell that this was Stephen King's cocaine face, because he's just like, he is on it. His acting is atrocious. It's so bad, but it's hilarious. Apparently
It sort of fits, yeah.
it totally fits. Apparently, George A. Romero told him to go bigger, which is hilarious because he's so big in it. I just this one's just so delightful, cartoonish, and yeah.
I can also imagine it might be a little bit hard to say no to Stephen King or to overly discipline him. I mean, that's a hard job.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, it's true. Just go bigger, Stephen. Just do your thing. Do your thing. No, it's it's really fun. Oh, it's such a good movie. Such a fun romp. I love it.
Okay, so my number 4.
Oh my God, we have 4.
I love this one. It's a little obscure. The book's not. The book's amazing. I'm gonna go with Salem's Lot.
Whoa, yeah.
Love this one.
Yeah.
It's Tobe Hooper, who I'm a huge fan of. He did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, classic. He did Eaten Alive, which was pretty bad, but it's been parodied a lot in horror, and this one's a TV movie, and it's about Dracula.
So good.
Empire film, and it's got this. I think what I love about it is it's got that 70s graininess to it that I love, but it also has this. I guess it would be kind of a cartoonish feel to it, but in a scary way. It's not like Creepshow where it's a cartoon goofy. This is cartoon scary. Like when the first child gets abducted or killed, it's the shadow just kind of like overtakes it. So maybe it's more classic horror. It's like a 50s throwback or something.
It sort of is. It's got like Nosferatu vibes, and yeah.
And I think it's one of the greatest horror scenes, and it happens a few times in this movie, is when the kid floats up to the window and is like scratching.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That genius.
It's so freaky.
So freaky.
Yeah.
And a lot of gore in this movie, which is what I like too. It's just masterful directing.
Yep. Does not need it to be freaky. This is one of the ones that I would like to see a remake of it. Like, I think I said this with Children of the Corn too. If they do a good remake, not a terrible one like they did before, it'd be a cool one to see redone, because as much as I love the miniseries that seemed to be like a thing in the 70s, 80s to do like the miniseries for like, because you got it, you've got apparently The Shining, The Stand, and this one. But I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, I do wish they would do maybe a remake of it, just because it's so scary. It's such a scary story, and the miniseries vibe of it, even though obviously Tobe Hooper does it in a way that is very effective, but I find that it can be difficult to translate real scariness in a miniseries unless you're very, very skilled at doing it like Tobe Hooper. Like, I don't think it is particularly scary most of the time, except for Pennywise. And that's because a lot of the like horror has to get cut out because it's going on TV, right? But Salem's Lot accomplished it really well. But good movie. I like it. It's so scary. Freaks me out. The vampire. Ugh.
Awesome. Nosferatu. So
yeah, totally. And I don't think I've read Jerusalem's Lot, but if I think that in the story, he's not quite as like Nosferatu-y. Like he's a little more normal looking, that character.
Yeah,
But
he's very monstrous
yeah,
in this movie for sure. Yeah.
terrifying. There was this 90s kids horror show that I used to watch quite religiously called Are You Afraid of the Dark? And there was an episode of it called like Midnight Madness, where it took place in an old movie theater, and they were showing. They didn't call it Nosferatu, but it was Nosferatu. So the vampire was made to look exactly like that. And in it, he comes out of the screen and into real life, and like basically tries to stalk and kill the kids. That imagery, like that Nosferatu look for a vampire, I want them to bring that back so badly in something, because it's terrifying. Like it's really freaky. A lot of vampire stuff now is like these, good looking, sparkly, romantic figures, but like I want to see that Nosferatu kind of vampire thing come back and really scare the crap out of people again, because it's good.
Yeah. I also want to just rep Tobe Hooper's movie Funhouse. That came out after this movie in 1981. Awesome movie.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out.
He's I think the problem with Tobe Hooper, he's had some like he's a bit of a hit and miss director. Like he can nail it or he can really not nail it. There's some really films.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean there's a few of them that are just so amazing. Like even Poltergeist, right? That's so good.
Love Poltergeist. Yeah.
Although that's a bit of a mystery, because I think there's a lot of rumors that was actually a Steven Spielberg directed movie, and he put Tobe Hooper's name on it because he contractually wasn't allowed to direct it.
Kind of a little conspiracy theory there, eh?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is very, I mean, it's definitely got a lot of like Steven Spielberg vibes in it, that movie.
Yeah. It's kind of like a mixture of both directors.
Yeah.
Which makes it so genius. Right?
Yeah, it's such a good film. See, I was talking about remakes, and there's some movies that you're like, oh, I'd love to see a remake of that if they did a good job. And then there's others where you're like, don't touch that movie. Why are you that stupid? And Poltergeist is definitely one of those movies. You're like, why? Don't do it. And same thing with like Carrie. Like they've tried to remake Carrie a couple times, and it never works because the first time was iconic.
Yeah.
If the movie isn't like if it's not as iconic, or if it's not there's a performance that isn't as like, I don't know, legendary or whatever, then yeah, you can definitely try to take your own spin on it. But when it's something like so cemented, there's just like, you gotta stay away. Yeah. Oh my god, so excited.
Getting close.
Number 3 for me is Misery, 1990.
Good one.
I have where to begin. Rob Reiner directing, so fantastic. Already I know it's going to be a good film. Kathy Bates,
Classic.
James Caan. Like this movie is so good. This is such a well-made movie. And I don't even know if, I would say it's more of a thriller than a horror, for sure. But it is probably one of the scariest, I think, of all, especially the adaptations, like the film adaptations. Mm-hmm. There is something about Kathy Bates's performance that is iconic, and also just so, it's memorable, but she just makes this character come alive. And there's no, I love when like actors, you can't comment on your character, right? So you can't go around being like, I'm making an evil decision because I'm a bad person. I think I'm bad, or anything like that, right? The way that she plays this freaking character is like, she truly believes she's good. She is doing things that are right and moral, and she is, and everything that she does is out of love. And how scary is that? Like, that's terrifying to twist love like that. The time when she starts to say things to him like, "I love you, Paul." I'm like, oh my God, that is twisted. It's so twisted. And it's cool how how it builds, right? Like when you first meet her, there's something, it's a little off. You already kind of know, and you know what movie you're in. So you're prepared for, she's obviously going to not be all right. But, you first meet her and you're like, okay, she's just maybe a little bit lonely and weird.
Yeah.
As you start to see her unravel, it is the first scene where she comes, I think it's at night, she comes in and she starts like freaking out about him writing profanity in his books.
Yeah.
And she loses her mind. And it's so early into it that it's this like first glimpse of like, oh God, she's fucked. Oh my God. And even he, like James Caan, is like, oh my, what? This is the first time he was really seeing her like just crazy start to come out. The tension building, masterful in this, between the acting and between the script and between Rob Reiner and between the score. Everything is just masterful in tension building. There's not even a lot of violence in this, but the tension building is so good that when the violence happens, first of all, it's when she hobbles him.
Yeah. It's famous. Yeah. Very disturbing.
Oh my God. It's so good. It's just such a good movie. I spent a lot of time talking about Annie, but like James Caan, even, man, what a performance he gives. Like, it's insane. When she makes him burn his manuscript, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a writer, but I guess like as an artist, you can relate to this. Like, this is like,
yeah,
that's your life's work, and she makes him burn it, and it is. It's such a good performance, and he starts to unravel who she really is, and like, oh, she turns out she's like some serial killer of babies, and like, it's such a good story. It's such a good film. Almost put it higher, but for some nostalgic reasons, because it's so good. I love this story. I love this movie. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, good choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 3, it's another drama.
Ooh.
This was very hard because there was 2 of them that are very similar. But I decided to go with The Green Mile. It's my number 3. Yeah. It's awesome. I don't really have to say too much about it. I do have a good story, though. I went to see it with my grandmother, and in the theater, and she's a very, how would you say, a very like strict, Scottish woman. Not one to show a lot of sensitivity.
Yep.
Her story is wild. She was in the Navy in World War II, and she was the only woman on the ship.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So she was
tough.
It was tough. Very tough.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, I looked over and I saw that she was crying in the theater. So I'm thinking if a movie can touch my grandma like that,
yeah, it's probably pretty good.
I mean, she was awesome. I mean, she's passed, but she was amazing too. But yeah, very tough.
Yeah.
At the end of that movie, you could see that
it affected her.
Really affected her. Yeah.
It's a very effective movie, and I'm with you that I think that there's an argument to be made. I mean, I don't know. I love Shawshank, and I love Green Mile, but I think Green Mile's better too.
Yeah. For me, it's just much more emotional. I mean, Shawshank is
oh, it's so good.
Written and performed, but there's that emotion with the Green Mile.
Yeah, and it's really well done. And man, some of those scenes are just gut wrenching.
Yeah.
Of that fucking guard.
Oh yeah.
That little weenus
I didn't
Percy or
know the
whatever.
sponge had to be wet.
Oh, you fucking asshole. Every time, it's one of those movies that every time I watch that scene, I'm like, I'm mad. I'm so mad.
It's Percy,
It's like,
right?
yeah, what a wiener name too. Percy. Get out of here.
No.
That's mean. I shouldn't say that. But his name has no bearing on the fact that he's an asshole. That character is really foul, and that scene is horrifying. Doesn't he also step on the mouse? Is it him who steps on the mouse and kills it? Oh, what a fucking asshole. Just I get mad thinking about it.
Well, and it showed the different levels of evil, right? There's like pure evil, where it was the prisoner who raped and murdered those girls, those children. But then it was Percy, who is, it's kind of another kind of evil. It's like like stepping on someone's beloved rat is fairly, I mean, obviously not in the same category as raping girls, but it's still horrible. It's still you're still an asshole. No. Evil. Well, but then again, the sponge thing, I mean, I
would argue he's absolutely evil, like intentionally evil.
Yeah.
That scene is horrifying. Like I didn't know that even. Like when I was a kid, I had no idea about that's how they did that. So watching that scene being like, oh my God, like it's deep. Yeah. And I mean, that performance given, it's Michael, what's his name? He's passed away. That's so sad. I can't remember his name right now. That's terrible. Anyway, his performance is.
Oh, John Coffey. Character. Yeah. Michael,
what's his name?
Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah. I was like, I knew it was 3 names. So good.
Yeah. He died in 2012. Wow.
Yeah. And he's so good. He, I mean, physically, obviously, he's perfect for the role, but he really he acted that part so beautifully. Like it's so touching. It was perfectly cast. Yeah, like Sam Rockwell. Yeah, just amazing. Oh yeah. God, I always forget.
Yeah, I forget too because he's really big now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and
Doug Hutchins.
Yeah, Frank Darabont again. He's a really good filmmaker, and it's interesting because he's made some like Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile are 2 of probably the greatest movies ever. Maybe, I don't know. Like they're very high up on people's lists.
Arguably,
right? Yeah. So it's interesting that he sort of seems to kind of hide in the background a little bit. Frank Darabont, like he I don't know, like he's not like very, I mean, he could be like Spielberg making movies all the time, he's so good at it, but
yeah, it just seems like he's not really super interested in like, in like self-promotion or press.
Yeah. Which I get. I totally understand. Yeah. And I get that because that's definitely like one thing about especially like an entertainment industry that is, oh God, you have to have that level of self-promotion. And some people just aren't like that. Yeah. So that could very well be that.
It's show business. It's not show.
Yeah. Exactly. Damn. But yeah, it's he's such a great filmmaker, and yeah, I love The Green Mile. It's such a good movie. Anytime it's on TV, I'm like, oh great, settling in for the afternoon. That's fantastic. Yeah.
All right, Sam, 2.
Oh my goodness, getting there. Number 2. This was a battle. This was a true battle. So my number 2 is Pet Sematary, 1989. And I know that we already talked a little bit about this movie, but holy cow, I really could talk forever about it. I think that this movie is genius. And I'm aware that there are people out there who would laugh in my face for saying that, because I know a lot of people don't like this movie. I can't understand that. That makes, when someone tells me that they don't like this movie, I don't get it. I'm like, why? Because it is so well done. Yeah, some acting is a little questionable. I personally love. I didn't write down his name. I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays Lewis. I know a lot of people don't like his performance at all. I think he's really great. I love what he does with Lewis Creed. Denise Crosby as Rachel Creed is. Her performance is stunning. It's heartbreaking. It's tragic. She brings out this, like, she's got so much, that character has so much trauma and it's unresolved, and Denise Crosby just really carries that in an effective way. Fred Gwynn playing Judd.
Yeah. Awesome.
Like,
amazing.
I remember watching the movie for the first time. And the first scene where they pull up to the house, and then Judd comes over. Well, actually, he saves Gage from being smushed early in the movie. And he introduces himself, and right away, I hadn't seen the Munsters. It was a little early for me, but right away I was like, who this person, this actor, this character is so intriguing. I'm very interested. Now I'm solid in this movie. Like, I'm in, because there's just something about his character and Fred Gwynn's portrayal of this character that is just so watchable and so intriguing. And you just want to know, what does this guy know? How is this going to unfold? Yeah. I love the supernatural stuff in terms of like being visited by that creepy, disgusting ghost, who's also hilarious, actually. Pascal, you know what I mean? He's great. He's really interesting, and some people hate him, but I think he's a great addition. I love that he follows them through. He's trying to help. I don't know why he doesn't just go to the wife in the first place, and he insists on visiting the kid in the dreams, because that seems like, come on, buddy, like, go. Yeah. Don't go to the kid. She's not going to be able to articulate this properly. But it's very, very well done. The whole movie. The scene where Gage is hit by the truck.
Yeah.
Like, is soul crushing. It doesn't matter how far removed I am from watching this movie. Every time I watch that scene, I honestly emotionally react to it, because it's just so well shot. When you start off with following the truck and the flashing back and forth between the truck and them having this picnic, and you just know it's coming.
Yeah. And
oh my God, from that point, like, the kid gets hit, and the first thing I notice is that silence, like, other than him screaming, is just silence. We don't even get music again until like 15 minutes later, after the funeral, which is also another heartbreaking scene that apparently Mary Lambert really fought to keep in the movie, because people were like, oh, that's really, but she was like, no, it needs to be in there, because it's real and it's visceral and it's sad, and it just drives it all home, right? Like, his little hand popping out of the coffin.
Oh yeah.
And then when we get back into horror movie territory, all of a sudden, and we're talking about reanimating corpses, and there's demon children, and like Gage becomes evil, and it's so scary. It's just, it's such a good movie. I love this. I love this movie. I didn't even mention Zelda, but that's also nightmarish.
Although yes, that's crazy.
Like, so scary. And what I appreciate about that particularly is that, the way that it's retold and the way that Zelda's presented to us is very likely not what she probably actually looked like, but it's what Rachel remembers and why Rachel was scared and the image in her brain. So it's kind of interesting when they do the flashbacks, because the way I always took it was like, they say she had spinal meningitis or something. That doesn't make you look like that. So, I think that a lot of the way that she's presented in the film is just because of Rachel's like imagery of that remembrance of that, and in her brain it was that scary and that monstrous, and that's why it's presented to us that way, and it's really freaky. Like,
Yeah. I also remember that whole flashback scene where where she was dressed up kind of like a perfect sort of doll child, and so maybe that was the extreme, the extremes of what was happening. Like, she was meant to be perfect, but
Yep.
the other sister was, the nightmare that the parents wanted to forget about.
yeah. And really,
very
there's
emotionally gut wrenching.
totally, and I think he says Lewis says to her at one point, like, after she tells him that story, and he's like, if I needed any more reason to hate your parents, like, it's this. And it's true, because they, like, you think about the trauma of that, like, your parents left you with your dying sister. That is fucked up. There's a lot of bad parents in Stephen King, in Stephen King stories. And honestly, I think that these parents, they're not the biggest characters in the story, but I think that they are very memorable as being some of the worst parents in Stephen King lore, because that is messed up. That's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great pick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We already talked about this one.
Yep.
Number 2, I'm going to go Dead Zone.
Whoa. Cool.
I love it.
Yep. It's so good.
Perfect movie.
Yep.
So Christopher Walken's character, I think it's Johnny, right?
Yeah. Johnny Smith.
Johnny Smith.
Really?
So I mean, like, the first thing I thought about was he's a symbol of Jesus, right?
Mhm.
He comes, he's leading a normal life, and then all of a sudden, he's thrown into this sacrificial role
Yeah.
to basically save the world, and he didn't choose it.
Yep.
God or the universe just threw it on him,
Yeah.
and he's got to sacrifice himself for the betterment of humanity, right? That's really the vibe
True.
there, right?
That's really interesting. I mean, that doesn't occur to me. Stuff like that imagery, but that's really cool. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's really what it was. He's like, why did this happen to me? What, why? I was so happy I was going to get married. My life was so great, and I get shouldered with this crazy burden. Like, what is my why?
Mhm.
And then you find out, oh yeah, no, you're going to save the world.
Yep. Surprise.
And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of movies, are symbolic of the Bible, because the Bible is one of the oldest, tales or religions, or like whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, and it's definitely a thread through Western civilization, right?
Yeah. That's really cool. And I mean, his journey is just it's really wild, because you just see him struggle with it. And wouldn't you? Like, I mean, so now my life is not only destroyed, but like, I have this burden of like what everyone probably thinks is super cool. Like, his doctor's like, this is awesome. And you're like, this is not awesome. Actually, this is not in any way awesome. I don't want this.
But I think that is the highest level of wisdom.
Yeah.
In a life, is to realize that there is a greater good beyond you.
It's true.
And I think he recognizes that at the end. It's like, no,
Yeah.
this is what I got to do. And
Yeah.
I mean, we see glimpses of it, especially with parents, right?
Mhm.
Where they become secondary to their children, and
Mhm.
I think as we get older, we become less and less self-involved or selfish, because like,
Yeah.
like when you're a kid, it's all about you, right? It's like you're the center of the universe, and
Yep.
and then when you become a teenager, you're the center of a small world, and then when you're an adult, you realize that we're just
Oh man. Yeah, exactly.
we're not the center of the world anymore.
No.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's such a strong, it just has such strong symbolic undercurrents that this movie it resonates with me in so many amazing ways.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's a very simple film.
Yep.
It's just,
But sometimes simple is, as we know, effective, right?
Well,
Very effective.
and I prefer simple movies, right?
Yeah.
I like really if it's a mini series. If it's a series where it's a long form artistic statement. I like the complexity, and even with long novels, I love it when it goes in all these different places. But when it's a 2 hour movie, I'd rather it just be a simple emotional ride.
Yep, exactly.
I don't like to have all these I find that with modern movies, there's all these multiple plot lines weaving in and out, and I find it kind of distracting from the main. I just want to lose myself for 2 hours. I just want to experience a character.
Yep.
For
Totally.
long it is.
This movie really lets you do that too. Like you really know what Johnny's feeling and what he's going through, and you can put yourself very, very easily into his shoes, I think too. You know, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't even matter. It's just that every person concept again, right? Which again, King, maybe that's why he's named Johnny Smith, because it's just like, it could literally have been anyone. And that's the idea, right? Like who was he? He was just a guy having a great life. You know, things were going really well. Boom, twist of fate.
And then I guess the ultimate wisdom would be, well, if you finally see the big picture, would you want to go back to that old life? You know, it's kind of like the Matrix. It's like once, like, do you want to be reinserted and plugged back in? Or you've had you've seen some other bigger picture of the universe or of the religious story.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, totally.
Back, it's like no, this is much bigger. This is much.
Yeah, you are but a tiny, tiny speck, my friend. This is the journey you must learn. Yeah. It's such a good movie. It's definitely good. Yeah.
Number one.
Whoa, number one. So like I said, this one was tricky between Pet Sematary, but I think I come away fairly confident that my all-time favorite here is Carrie.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just love this movie so much. It is absolutely iconic. I mean, we did talk about it a little bit already, but I just think that it is perfect filmmaking. Brian De Palma, like, it's interesting, especially because if you think about the time period, and he is handling some sensitive kind of, what does this guy necessarily know about being a teenage girl getting her period for the first time, and how is he going to be able to sort of like, put that forth in a way that isn't, ridiculous and works and feels real. And he is able to do it so well. Like, I mean, right from the moment that we open on the shower scene, the steam and the music, and we meet Carrie for the first time, and we see what happens to her in that moment. And the filmmaking is just so excellent. The shots are so well thought out and not gratuitous. When you see the blood run down her leg, it's just, you see it, and it's not like, they didn't make it like a small amount. It's very clear what it is, right? They don't shy away from it, but they don't make it, a joke or gross or nasty, and I just think that, especially when you consider the time period that this movie came from, that's kind of, I think that would have been unique. Honestly, I don't know if it would have happened under a different director that way. The lighting and the visual effects, the acting in this movie, everything is so good. Sissy Spacek, who we already sort of talked about, I just think that her work in this movie is like, I could cry thinking about it. She's just so genuine and so watchable. And I really feel, I feel for Carrie, and, in ways can relate to Carrie. Carrie, you could be Carrie, right? Like getting bullied and having, but for, fate that you were born to the right people and that you were in the right place at the right time. Right. It's just a really great movie. And then you've got Piper Laurie playing Mrs. White, and she is just terrifying. I think she might be definitely the scariest villain here that we see. She is all consuming. She's just smothering, whether she's talking to Carrie or whether she's like throwing herself onto the neighbors to preach to them, showing up at their door and like barging in and, giving them Bible verses and stuff. And, you sort of even you even kind of know people who are like that a little bit, who just get very like in your face about their, wanting to pass on what they know to you, or like how, and her performance is just, it's just so good. It's rage filled. You see like you just see her being progressively more even jealous of her daughter, I think, too. Like she starts to get this almost jealousy over Carrie's, becoming a woman. So she really leans into this, you are sin, you are evil. And then she gets, invited to the prom, and it just, you just see her mom just really become this twisted and evil. And it's definitely a commentary, as King does a lot, on the idea that like religion can get really twisted, and when people twist it, it is a tool for evil. Honestly, it really can be, and that's sad. And I think that's the point, is that it is sad and it is scary, because we want to believe that religion is fundamentally is good, and it comes from a place of love, and comes from a place of moral and light and love and all of that stuff. But sometimes there are people, it's like we talked about, some people are just evil, and those people can twist those messages.
For sure.
And it happens even to this day. People can twist those messages, and it's sad. But I think this is a very good character study on that. And yeah, like we already talked about, there's iconic imagery. She's walking out in the flames at the end in her blood-soaked dress. I just love when the pig's blood drops on her, and the color of her blue eyes that are just so wide, and the contrasting with the red pouring down and the red lighting, and it's just freaky. And honestly, like the final scene it makes the entire movie worth it. Like the movie is good. Like a lot of people, I think, like nothing happens till the end, like it's boring until the end. I don't think so. I think it's so intriguing, the building up to that final moment. But that scene in the gym just makes everything in the first two acts worth it. So good.
Killer.
Yeah. Carrie.
And the more we talk about this, like I'm almost like, yeah, like maybe I should have put a Carrie higher, because it's awesome.
It's so good. It's really good. And yeah, like I say, it's just it's one that we can kind of, I don't know. There's like, maybe it's again because I was a teenage girl, and I can relate to this story a lot in a lot of ways. So I just think it's scary and sad and just really well done. Yeah.
Okay, so my number one,
Whatever.
it's very clear to me. This is by far my favorite Stephen King movie, Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. It's my favorite director is Stanley Kubrick.
Mhm.
All his movies, he's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you're watching this movie. It's like it's beyond a movie. It's like a painting.
Yeah.
Like a work of art. And yeah, like the movie that he did before this one, called Barry Lyndon, I think he shot the whole film in this. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a different kind of lens. The whole movie was supposed to look like a giant painting.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just the visuals are just unbelievable.
Well, you can take any shot in the film, even the most like mundane shot, and it's art. Like you could make it a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally insane. There's a really good movie on Netflix, or documentary called Room 237 that talks about all the symbology in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but the theory is that Stanley Kubrick was in on the whole moon landing hoax.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now, whether or not it was a hoax or not, I think what I believe is, I think people went to the moon, but I think the footage that we were seeing live was faked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I think
Could be.
that's what's confusing. And then the rumor is that Stanley Kubrick was involved in that shooting of the footage. Now, there's actually a movie. It's called Capricorn 1, and it's all about faking the moon landing.
Oh, really?
Awesome. It came out in the 70s. Great movie.
It's definitely it's one of those conspiracy theories that you're like, well, I mean, I could see that.
Yep.
That one could work. That could be it.
I forgot why I brought that up. Oh, yeah, it's because there's a lot of NASA symbology,
Mhm.
and I think the rumor was that he's trying to tell people
Yeah,
I was involved in the fake footage of the moon landing. But anyway,
oh, that's funny.
and Jack Nicholson is amazing. I also love that in some places the movie didn't quite make sense or tie together, and it's like
Yeah.
like when he had that vision of seeing that the young woman in the shower, and then she ends up being this old zombie. But then he goes back and it seems like that never happened. So
Yeah.
there's some weird parts of the movie that don't quite make sense,
Totally. Absolutely.
but it makes it more interesting. And I remember there was another short documentary on the making of the movie, and Jack Nicholson pointed to that. He's like sometimes the plot doesn't quite fit together, but
Yeah.
I think Stanley's saying was, well, who cares? It's cool. It's intriguing.
It's cool. It's true though.
Right? So
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that just looking at this movie is so great.
Yeah.
Like it's just so great. The hedge maze is really cool, which is absent from the book because it's like a topiary of like hedge animals or something in the book. But I love the maze thing. I think that's really cool. The imagery of it is freaky. Yeah, it's such a great film. Like it's really, really, really well done.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say that I heard that at the hotel where they filmed it, they asked if they would change the name of the room from the one that it was in the book, because in the book it's 217, and then in the movie it's 237, and they wanted it to change so that people wouldn't be like freaked out, and they wouldn't be like, oh, like I don't want to stay in the ghost room, I don't want to stay in the shining room, like that's freaky, so can you change the room? So they're like, can you change the room name? So they did. They changed it to 237. But then what ended up being really funny is that room is the one that gets checked out the most now.
Interesting.
They make a lot of money on that room. So
And
funny.
And that concept is like another Stephen King film that was almost going to make the list. 1408,
Yeah.
about a haunted hotel room.
Yeah. That one's free. I saw it in theaters. I don't remember much of it. But I might give it maybe give it another watch. We'll see. Because I love the idea of like the haunted hotel room thing. That's so cool and freaky and scary.
Also, the music in this movie is perfect. So what Kubrick?
Oh yeah, it's the best.
It's another famous film music story. So for 2001, Stanley Kubrick. Well, what most directors do is they'll put on what's called a temp score.
Mhm.
So they'll get a collection of pre-recorded music to be a temporary score for the movie. And Stanley Kubrick's a huge classical fan, so he would take classical music from all eras of classical music and put it as his temp score.
Yeah.
And for 2001, he hired Alexander North to come in and replace the score. And apparently he rejected Alexander North's score and kept the temp score in. So that's why 2001 has all these famous classical pieces,
Yeah.
Strauss and
Yeah.
and so
Which
that
works. I'm glad.
yeah. And so that's kind of become his style. He did that in this movie too. He has a mixture of temp music, and
Mhm.
Wendy Carlos is a synth composer that he likes to use too.
The synth in it is so cool.
It's awesome. But for me,
Yeah.
the greatest piece of music, I think it's one of the greatest pieces of music ever written. It's Bartok's music for strings, percussion, and celeste.
hmm
That was used all throughout the movie. Like that's the score that you hear during the maze.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
It's
scene when Jack's in his room throwing the handball, going a little kooky.
Mhm.
It's brilliant.
yeah.
It's and it's also got other modern composers like Ligeti and Penderecki, I think, is in this one too. So
Mhm.
just
The music is really effective and really like it's a highlight for sure. I mean, even the opening credits, it's freaky. Like all you're watching is a car driving through the mountains.
yes.
That's all you're watching, but the music is just like, okay.
So
Yep.
so that theme during the opening scene, that's from Berlioz is symphony. I'm gonna guess Symphony Fantastique, I think, and it's the Witch's Sabbath, fourth movement, Witch's Sabbath, and that's Wendy Carlos doing her synth thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh man, that's so awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, I got recall all my classical knowledge.
No, I love it. Hey, it honestly is really, it's so effective in this film and in 2001: Space Odyssey. I'm glad he did that because it works so well. I mean, classical music, it's a mood.
Yeah.
It's definitely a mood. Yeah, I love it. I love when it's used like that too. It's great. It's great effect. Yeah.
Okay,
oh man,
we're out of time.
Look, we did it.
Yeah, we did it. So everybody, thanks for joining us. That was a lot of fun.
That was good. We did great.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope this inspires you to go out and watch some new movies, or even read some more Stephen King stories.
Yeah. I might still.
No, me too. I'm gonna watch Carrie again.
Do it. Oh my god. Yeah. Definitely. Yep. All right. Bye.
Jimmy Wolf's Guitar Solo Countdown.